Welcome to the Den of Tools.
Howdy ho, guys and gals, it's Red, your friendly neighborhood tool bear, back again here in the Den of Tools. And today we're here to talk about a subject that comes up a lot. A lot of people send me emails and ask about it, and that is, Red, can you tell me who makes what? Who owns these different power tool companies? Who makes the tools for them in some cases? It's all kind of confusing, and I'll be honest, I can agree with you. When you look at it, it's all sorts of confusing. I mean, it's all over the place. So here today, what we're going to talk about, what we're going to explain for you is who owns / makes which cordless power tools. Now, I know this topic has come up on other channels and websites before, and they kind of throw all tools into one bin here. But I find it gets a little confusing because sometimes you have one tool having their power tools made here, their cordless tools made there, their hand tools made somewhere else, maybe 2 or 3 different places. So we're going to sort this out. So this is going to be the first part in the series where we talked specifically about cordless hand tools primarily sold in the United States, because this is where, this is where most of us are. So we're going to be kind of, US focused here. So once you start thinking about it like that, it all kind of gathers together, coalesces, if you will. Squint your eyes a little bit, it looks a bit more like this. So what we have is the big boy in the block is Stanley Black & Decker. They own and make Mac tools, DeWalt, Craftsman. Now, there's a caveat there. We're going to get to that in a bit. Porter Cable, and Black & Decker. The next biggest one here, as far as in the U.S., is TTI. They make Milwaukee, Ryobi, AEG, which is actually sold overseas, but we're talking about because it's really rigid here. And as well, the new Hart brand. And we're going to talk more about the specifics, so don't jump down to the comments just yet. Then we also have Chevron, or I'm not pronouncing it exactly, it's probably French Chevron or something, I don't know. But the point of the matter is, it's not Chevron, and they've acquired in the recent years Skill Saw and Skill, as well as they manufacture tools for Cobalt and, Craftsman. We're going to talk about that. Hold on. Then we also have Harbor Freight Tools with their in-house tools, Hercules, Earthquake, Bauer, and Warrior. We got Hitachi and the Metabo HPT thing going on. And then in the lower left, we got the independents. These are, some of them are small, some of them are big enough, they're standalone conglomerates in and of their own. And that's Bosch, SnapOn, Makita, Hilti, Grizzly, Ingersoll Rand, Fine, and Festool. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about who makes what and who owns what. And starting off, we're going to start, as I said, with Stanley Black & Decker here. Now, Stanley Black & Decker, they merged a few years ago. It was, oh my gosh, let me see if I can remember. So they acquired, I believe it was Stanley acquired Black & Decker back in the late 2000s, like 2008, 2009. I think it was 2009. And they became, at that time, I believe, the largest tool company out there. They own lots of other brands. They own Bosch Stitch, they own Proto, they own just a whole slew of other ones. But we're going to talk about the cordless power tools that you see here in the U.S. And we're really talking about, we're not going to cover Bosch Stitch because they don't have a full line of tools. So we're going to talk about the ones that have a full line. And when we talk about that, you got to talk about DeWalt. DeWalt is the big boy. That's their pro contractor grade, construction grade cordless tool set. They have corded as well, but we're talking about cordless. And these are the tools that are almost exclusively, they're marked with the made in the USA with international, sources or, parts or whatever. Basically, a lot of parts made overseas, brought to the US and assembled here. But the fact of the matter is they really dominate the market. Anytime you turn around, you go to a job site or something, you're going to see DeWalt tools. They're everywhere you can find. I've said, before, I've been kind of critical of them. I think the pricing on the batteries is a little too high, and I think their low-end tools are a little too low-end for what you pay for. But their high-end tools are definitely that pro construction grade kind of stuff. But this isn't their only pro grade tools platform. They also own Mac Tools. Now, Mac Tools, though, is focused almost exclusively in the automotive and mechanical industries. You're going to see a lot of impact stuff. You're going to see a lot of ratchets. You'll see some drill drivers and some other stuff, but you're not going to see that contractor kind of stuff. You're going to see these in the bays and in other kind of industrial applications, often sold off of tool trucks or mail order as well. Now, here's something a lot of people don't realize, which is the battery platform between DeWalt and Mac is interchangeable. You can use a Mac charger on DeWalt batteries. You can use a DeWalt charger on Mac batteries. unless they've changed it recently. But up until the last time I checked, that was true. Next, we're going to talk about Craftsman. So Stanley Black & Decker bought Craftsman. Now, not just a license to it, but they bought the rights to, or the ownership of the Craftsman brand from Sears a few years back for $900 million. Yeah, that was a big price. And not only that, Sears, though, retains the rights to keep selling, manufacturing, and selling Craftsman tools for a few more years. We're going to get into that. We'll talk about that more later here. But they have now come out with a slew of these Craftsman branded tools, and we're seeing them everywhere. We're seeing them in Lowe's. We're seeing them in Ace. We're seeing them in a lot of different stores. They're really pushing this out. They're going whole hog into this. This is their middle of the road DIYer prosumer grade tool, and they're trying to make this the number one option for homeowners and for people who are trying to work on projects but aren't doing it for a living. They seem like pretty decent tools, but again, I think they suffer from the Stanley Black & Decker, high battery price and probably charging a little bit more than what you might think they're worth. Next on that list is Porter Cable. Now, the sad thing about Porter Cable is they used to be a fabulous brand. They got purchased by Stanley Black & Decker back, I think it was in the 2000s or the early teens, and they have not been quite the same since. And the even worse is they were the middle of the road brand before Craftsman was the golden child, and now they're getting pushed out. Lowe's, which was the main home for them, is barely carrying them now, and we're actually starting to see these show up at other retailers. We're seeing it a lot online, and we're also seeing it in some brick and mortars. Walmart, for one, is starting to carry them. And I think we're going to see it at a few other places as well. They're starting to pop up here and there. I think people are testing the market. It looks like, now, one of my viewers suggested that, hey, this is what's going to happen. I said, oh, I doubt it. Well, yeah, the bear can be wrong, because it really does look like this is going to become the pseudo white box, here's the top brand for your store to carry that isn't an exclusive to one of the big boys. So it's going to be a way for smaller hardware stores and other, tertiary stores to also have a competitive high-end prosumer grade, allegedly, prosumer grade alternative. All right, next up we got to talk about Black & Decker. And Black & Decker, the name came from there. They used to be the big boys. Then they went kind of cheap, and they've stayed cheap. Black & Decker is the bottom of the basement. I know a lot of you like your Black & Deckers, especially that little matrix system. It's spiffy. I'll give you that. But it's the bottom of the barrel when it comes to Stanley Black & Decker. In fact, it's one of the lowest power, lowest, construction grade of all the power tool systems out there. It's funny, they sit there, a system that demands attention. I'm sure they think that in a good way, but when you tell me that this tool demands attention, it makes me think that it's more like high maintenance than reliable or something I need to look at. I don't know. Maybe the bear's wrong on this one. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about number 2 in the U.S., and that's TTI. Now, TTI is a company that started up in, I believe it was the late 70s over in China. They were making tools for other companies. They were making tools for Sears and for Ryobi, and they decided they wanted to become their own. They felt they needed to own their own success, so they bought Milwaukee. They own outright the brand Milwaukee, and they have been just killing it with Milwaukee. Milwaukee is just surging fast at first it was the hot tool to get on the job site for contractor grade and construction, and then it became the hot tool to get for automotive. They came out with the big impact wrenches and stuff, and they're just killing it left and right at the pro grade tools. They're unapologetically for professionals only, as they say. They're not catering at all to the home user or the DIY prosumer market. But of course, by doing that, like, you can't have this isn't for you. Of course, they know they're drawing those people in just the same, because nothing sells something like telling somebody they can't have it. Next in the TTI lineup is AEG. Now, they own AEG. When they bought Milwaukee, they got AEG as a package deal. Now, AEG is a cordless power tool platform system, actually corded as well, and it's sold over in Europe almost exclusively. Now, some of you are looking at this going, hey, that looks surprisingly familiar. That's because it's really close to Rigid. How close? Well, they really just changed the labels, that kind of close. AEG and Rigid, at least Rigid Orange, we're going to call it that, they're the same tools. They use the same batteries. They're completely interchangeable. You can use a charger from one, battery from the other, heads for one, blades for it all works the same. They're the same tools, just rebadged. Rigid is in the Americas. AEG is over in Europe. But why you're asking is, why do they do this? Well, because Rigid's actually owned by Emerson. Now, they, through a partner agreement, contacted TTI and said, hey, we want you to make these tools. They said, hey, we already have this platform ready to go. We can just rebrand it for you. But if you ever see Rigid with the red Rigid, what you're looking at there are professional grade plumber, HVAC. They're kind of branching out, but they used to be hardcore, like exclusively plumbers. And you're not going to see this stuff at Home Depot, really. You're not going to see it, on store shelves. This is something you're going to have to go to a specialty place or order online. So that's why, there is some confusion in that. Next up on the list is Ryobi. Now, Ryobi used to be the baby boy of the bunch. They were acquired by TTI through a licensing agreement. A lot of you, I know people are going to be down below typing, going, no, TTI owns Ryobi. They do not own Ryobi. They've licensed Ryobi exclusively from Ryobi Corporate in Japan. They own the rights to Australia, the Americas, and Europe. In fact, I think it might just be North America. In fact, Ryobi themselves no longer make any power tools. They sold their entire power tool division over to Kyocera. Now, this happened about a year ago, and there was some concern as to how this would affect Ryobi US. Now, a lot of people said, well, it can't affect it, because TTI owns them. Again, it's a licensing agreement, and we don't know what that license is tied to. None of us have access to the contracts that were signed, so we can't say like, well, hey, there's a rider in there that says if it's sold, it reverts to so and so, or they have the right to buy it back. We just didn't know, but at the time, it looks like it's played out where Kyocera is going to be Ryobi everywhere else. And TTI is going to be Ryobi in the countries we spoke about. In fact, if you want to see what Ryobi looks like everywhere else, it looks like this. Whereas in the States and the other countries, when it's made by TTI, it's the regular green that we see now. All right, so now we got that cleared. Now moving on, let's talk about Hart, because Hart's the new hotness from TTI. In a partnership with Walmart, and they're going to be sold exclusively at Walmart, we've got the new line of Hart tools. Now, there's more than this. There's going to be a whole bunch more coming. If you go to Hart's website, there's a whole slew of stuff that's going to be showing up later this year. Now, looking at this and just guessing, it looks like this is going to be price-costed Ryobi. What that means is they take things that they can save pennies on here and there, and they switch them out for something a little bit less. Like on the Hart, like the belt clip, instead of seeing a sheet metal belt clip, you'll see a wire belt clip. Now, you're like, that's only going to save them like a penny, right? Well, if they do that on, 100 different parts in the tool, they save $1. And if they save $1 on everyone and they're selling millions of them, that's millions of dollars saved. And they've got to make those price points that Walmart wants because, well, let's be honest, it's Walmart. But I think in the end, at the end of the day, the real killer deal at Walmart is where they're going to be able to do other partnerships with Walmart-made products in the store. I'm guessing one of the first things we're going to see are Hart-branded vacuums. Then we're going to see other Hart-branded accessories, maybe even Hart-branded, coolers and stuff. Because not just selling tools to people who maybe not normally would buy tools, as I often say, this is going to be the tool company for people who aren't really tool guys and gals, but imagine you're going away for a weekend and you need a powered cooler and you pick up this battery-powered Hart cooler. Well, now you're in the battery line for Hart, and when you go to look for a power tool, like, hey, I've got to fix this thing, what am I going to do? You're going to go back to Walmart and you're going to buy Hart. I think this is going to really have some serious impact on the low end of the power tool scale. Anyway, moving on here. Let's talk about Shervon. This is the one we talked about before. These guys have been a real behind-the-scenes players for years in the U.S. Often, seen but not really known who they are. And they're really making some serious moves in the 2000s here, especially in the 2010s. They picked up Skillsaw, which, as we know, is known for their worm drives, and came out with what I call to be the cordless saw of the year, the Skillsaw worm drive saw. And they've also picked up skill. Now, this is going to be another huge impact because we've seen some of the skill trying to get back into the cordless tool or even the corded tool market, not having a lot of great luck. Well, they get picked up by Vaughn. And now we're seeing this, the new Power Core 20. There's also a Power Core 12 that's out there. These look like some interesting tools. I want to get my paws on them and see what they're like. This could, again, be another disruptive tool company here, moving into the lower and mid-range companies, because it looks like this. I mean, it looks, I would say, a good sight better than like a Black & Decker. It's definitely on par, my guess would be, with at least a Hart, if not a Ryobi, and maybe even better. We're going to have to see. We'll see how it turns out. Next up, we got to talk about Cobalt. Now, Cobalt is Lowe's house brand. The brand is owned by Lowe's, but as you know, Lowe's is a retailer. They don't actually make anything. So they turn to Vaughn to make all of their power tools. And that is, all this 24-volt line of tools. I've tested them here. I have several of these. These are excellent tools. And one of the tools I always go to when I recommend people looking for that high-end DIY prosumer-grade tool. It's hard to go wrong with Cobalt. Now, we also got to talk about Craftsman. Now, we mentioned it before. Why are we talking about two different Craftsmen? Well, because Sears Craftsman still has the rights to make tools for a little bit while. Yeah, my buddy Fast Eddie Lampere over there, who owns Sears, has been selling the place like it's on fire. Selling parts of it here and there like it's a car up on blocks, right? Anyway, this is what we think of when we think of Sears Craftsman, and these tools, last I checked, were still made by Vaughn. I talked to some people over at Sears, and there was discussion that they might be finding a new source for these tools. I haven't had it confirmed that that's happened. It doesn't look like there's been any major change to the tools, but the fact of the matter is they have until 2032 to keep making power tools and hand tools. After 2032, they don't get to make any more tools, and all rights revert to Stanley Black & Decker, at which point every year after which they'll only receive a royalty on all products, all tools made. Now, what does that mean? I don't know if I would want to get into that power tool lineup if I'm planning to keep it long term. Now, another big news, we got to talk about Hitachi and Metabo and what's now called Metabo HPT. So, Hitachi has long been in the U.S., another competitor from Japan. Now, the tools mostly of these days are made in China, but they've had an excellent, 18/20 volt system there. And for those of you who don't know, 18 20 volt, it's the same thing. It's 18 volts nominal, 20 volts max. It's just where they measure the power curve. It's the same thing. You're not getting more power out of a 20 volt tool than you are getting out of its 18 volt competitor. Now, so Hitachi recently bought Metabo, and there was some question as to how the fallout and that's going to be. And honestly, I think we're still trying to figure out where it's going to go, because we've got Metabo tools, and then we also have Metabo HPT, which are clearly just Hitachi rebranded tools. It's looking like they're going to do these as two tiers. They're going to be the prosumer low-grade Pro tool, which is the Hitachi, and the upper grade Pro tool, which is Metabo. Now, the good news is if you had if you had Hitachi tools, the batteries, they didn't really change. The batteries all work, the chargers all work, everything's interchangeable, and they're still going to have that lifetime warranty. Now, lifetime there means the lifetime of the tool line. As long as they're making that tool, it's still under warranty. That's a pretty good deal. All right, now we got to talk about one of the Bears' favorites here, Harbert de Freights and their tools, and who owns and who makes these. Now, here's the reality. Harbor Freight, much like Lowe's, is a retailer. They don't make any of their own tools. Unlike Lowe's, they are a designer. So instead of calling them an OEM, they're an ODM, original design manufacturer. So they design the tools. They work with manufacturers over in China. They get the blueprints, if you will, the full design, send it over there, and have the tools made for them. So their top brand, their pro brand, is Hercules, and this is their contractor grade that they're trying to compete with the likes of DeWalt and Milwaukee with. And you've seen plenty of these on the channel. In fact, I think I have almost all of these except for the blower here in the shop. And I like them. I really do. My only downside with these tools is there's just not enough of them. There's just not really a full line of tools yet. Although I've heard through, whispers here and there that 2020 is going to be the year of Hercules over at Harbor Freight, that they're really going to put some emphasis behind it. We can only hope. Next up is Earthquake. That's the other pro grade tool. It's kind of like Earthquake to Hercules is similar to Stanley Black & Decker's DeWalt to Mac. Earthquake is their automotive mechanical line. It's not as large a line. Again, I'm hoping that they flesh these out in the future. We see more. I'd like to see more of the 12-volt stuff. Currently, there's only 2 items in the 12-volt tool line, but both of them are pretty good. That's the polisher and the cordless ratchet, and the impacts are a beast. Everyone who has one, everyone who's used them, has been more than thrilled with them for the money, and they've got a ton of power. And the grinder also, I've heard good things from, and the grinder is brushless, if I'm not mistaken. So there's definitely, hopefully some future here with these higher end brands over at Harbor Freight. They're trying their new good, better, best. They're trying to, get away from, not to get away, that's the wrong term. They're trying to expand beyond just the intro, cheap tools to have the mid-range prosumer and the upper-range pro tools. And speaking of prosumer, the DIY prosumer range, what we got here is Bauer. And Bauer has been killing it, man. They've just, 2019 just exploded for Bauer, and we saw all sorts of tools coming down the pipe for them. Recip saws, sanders, the new blower, the light just came out. We got batteries coming later this year, expanded batteries. We got the circ saw impacts, 3/4 impacts, all sorts of stuff. I got to tell you, I often say, people ask me, well, how good is the quality of Bauer? And, I got to be honest, it's not professional grade, but, it's pretty good. It's up there with the likes of all the other mid-range prosumer kind of stuff in that kind of price range. The upper-range Ryobi, I would say it's better than the Porter Cable. I haven't tested enough of the Craftsman to say. I would say the Rigid might be a little bit better than it, but it's also a good bit more expensive. So you have to take that into account. All right, next up, we've got Warrior. And Warrior has just a huge line of tools behind them. They're fabulous. They've got this great... Oh, wait, that Warrior. Sorry, wrong Warrior. I know, I'm just joshing. I'm trying to pull a few strings over at Harbor Freight, man. You guys need to really flesh out this Warrior line because it's anemic would be an overstatement for this. Right now, you got a drill and you got a flashlight. Man... Walmart with their Power Tough is really killing it. You got the Heartline coming out. You got all these new, power tools in the low end spectrum coming out. You guys got to get on board. Got to ramp that up. I know they're ramping up all sorts of new tools. I think they're coming out with 900, 1,000 new tools next year. So, and next up, we're getting into the independents. These are the people who stand on their own. Some of them are small. Some of them are huge. Bosch is, I think, the second largest tool company in the world. So, but they stand on their own, and their core 18-volt system is massive. You just got to go online and go to their website and see how big it is, because if you go to the store, you'll have no idea, no clue, because in the U.S., they just really don't care about the consumer market, or they haven't in recent years, at least as long up till this point. They've been solely focused on the high-end professional / corporate fleet accounts, where they sell, hundreds, if not thousands of tools at a time, and they haven't worried about the ones and twos that you see in retail, but they're expanding, trying to get that stock share up, how business goes. And with the introduction of the Bosch Freak, they've clearly said, we want to be a major player in the retail market. They've been giving this thing out, trying to all sorts of people all across YouTube and stuff, trying to get people onto this battery platform, knowing that if they're on the battery platform, they'll probably pick up another tool here or there, and that they're going to expand. You're going to see more in the lineup. I think in the next 2 years, there's going to be, again, more of a concerted effort by Bosch to reach the average pro, low-level pro, high-level prosumer market at retail. Okay, next up is one of the Bears' favorites. Often my choice when people ask, what pro-level tool should I get? Should I go with DeWalt? Should I go with Milwaukee? Should I go with Bosch or Metabo or whoever? And I'm always like, you need to consider Makita. Makita they're one of the old standbys. And my first cordless tool was a Makita, and that was back in, it was so long ago. It was 30 years ago. Anyway, the point of the matter is, Makita has one of, if not the largest lineup of 18-volt tools out there, and they're all fabulous. Now, some people I know, we got some people in the den who are like, I don't like Makita. There's always going to be some people where it doesn't fit for you. But my gosh, these guys make a ton of tools. Now, Ryobi maybe has a larger lineup, but a lot of their tools are repeats. I mean, they've got, 9 string trimmers? I mean, seriously, 15 blowers or something? I don't know. They seem to do all these different iterations for every time of year. It's kind of weird. But with Makita, you're getting good, solid tools every single time. All right, maybe not tools per se, because they go way out there sometimes. For a Japanese company, which can be kind of conservative, Makita seems more than willing to go out there and have some fun. I mean, who else makes a cordless powered wheelbarrow with headlights? Or how about a cordless coffee maker? You know, I don't know. Join me in writing emails over there because we're still waiting for the cordless pizza oven. Oh, you know you want to come on the job site. You can whip up a nice little Neapolitan pizza there. That'd be so much fun. Anyway, now we got to talk about Hilti. Oh, if we're going to talk about corporate, we're going to talk about enterprise level, fleet sales. You got to talk about Hilti. These guys could care less if individuals buy it. They are solely focused on that fleet sale. You go into a Hilti store, if you can find one, and you're going to be hard-pressed to find the price on the price tag. What you're going to find are rental prices, because they're all about renting, servicing, contract service, fleet maintenance, demolition, construction. These are big, serious tools. And one of the ones I often point to when people say, oh, I need brushless. Less than 20% of all the power tools, cordless power tools made by Hilti, are brushless. And there's a reason. Because brushed are so reliable. They're easy to fix. They're easy to maintain. And they just practically never die. Yeah, you may get a little bit more battery and power life out of a brushless one. And in some cases, it's true. You do want a brushless in that specific instance. And for those tools, Hilti does make them in brushless. So a good way, if you're trying to figure out, hey, does this tool need to be brushless? Go over to Hilti's website and see if they make a brushless version. If they do, then that's probably maybe one you might want to choose to purchase in brushless, even if you buy it from somebody else. And we got to talk about Festool. Wait, let me get my snout up in the air if we're going to talk about Festool. I got to tuck down to you the pores there who can't afford it. Festool is like the SnapOn of the construction contractor tool business. These are the elites of the elites, and they're beautiful tools. I've had several chances to use them. They're smooth as butter. They're a little odd in design. They seem kind of weird. And I got to tell you, those boxes they sell them with, I thought for sure like they would never survive day one on the job site. But apparently they do. Could be also when you pay $700 for your drill, you also treat the box that comes in a little bit better. I don't know. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but they're fabulous tools. But man, you're going to have to really bend over backwards to justify the price you're going to pay for them. Next up is Ingersoll Rand. Now, Ingersoll Rand's probably best known for their pneumatic tools, but they've also come out to be competitive with a line of power tools. Again, these guys are focused at the automotive industry. They're competing with Mac, they're competing with SnapOn, and they're going after that high-end pro-grade mechanic working in the bay, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, twice on Saturdays and Sundays. They're trying to approach that market for the people who are like, I've been with IR, with pneumatics, but now I want to go cordless. So they're trying to capture that market and keep them from going somewhere else. And they've been doing a fairly decent job of it. Hopefully we're going to see them expanding some more soon. I do know, and don't tell anybody, they're coming out with a line of hand tools to compete with SnapOn and everyone else again. That should be out this year, sometime first quarter, supposedly. And speaking of SnapOn, we got to talk about SnapOn. SnapOn is the grand old daddy when it comes to automotive hand tools. And I have to say, coming from, they had their share and they were doing great with air tools, but they were slow to the boat when it came to cordless power tools. And they're almost like a generation behind. They're still working on getting it. They make some good tools. They're excellent tools. They're heavy duty tools. Most of them made in the U.S., some of them made in China, but they're all owned by factories that are run or owned through SnapOn. And so SnapOn controls all their manufacturing. They have manufacturing in the U.S., in Mexico, in Spain, and in China and Taiwan. So they're made all over. But again, you're looking at around the $700 mark for some of these top of the line tools. And, well, that may be fine with you, but it's not fine with me. But let's talk about fine. Now, Fine is a company that's best known in the States for their multi-tool. I'm pretty sure because they invented the multi-tool. And they have some fabulous multi-tools. They really do. They've got corded, cordless, several different grades of cordless. But a lot of people don't realize they have a whole line of power tools to go with it. They've got all sorts of stuff. They've got magnetic core drills, LED lamps. They've got impact wrenches and drills and impact drivers and grinders and all sorts of stuff. A lot of people don't realize it because you don't see this in the stores. Again, these are guys who are they're targeting the pros. They're not really worried about the DIY or homeowner prosumer market. Next, we're going to talk about Grizzly. Okay, no relation. Let me just get that out there. Grizzly is a competitor to Harbor Freight. They're mostly, I would call them online only, except they do have 2 locations in the U.S. I think one's in Missouri and one's up in Washington. So it's really hard to call them a retailer, even though they do have a couple of retail establishments. 99% of their business is online. Last year, they announced they were coming out with their own line of cordless power tools, and a lot of us were really excited. There's a big power tool company that makes some excellent tools. The Grizzly bandsaw, if you're looking for a serious bandsaw, that's the bandsaw to buy. It's just, if you can afford it, that's the one to get. Table saws, they make some great table saws. Lathes, all sorts of great stationary power tools. And we were excited to hear they're coming out with cordless tools. And then I saw these and I went, I'm pretty sure I've seen that before. And then doing a little research, yeah, I've seen that in a lot of different colors before. That's OEM tools in the lower left. That's a channel lock branded tool there in the center. And then some other tools. All of these basically in essence are, of course, made in China from some generic off-the-shelf Chinese manufacturing company. You couldn't even call this ODM. This is white boxing. They're buying a tool from a company that's already made. It's on the shelves. There are options. Yes, you can choose this chuck or that chuck, but they've already got them. They're plug and play options. They slap your label. They print it. They make it in the color you want. Put it in your box and send it to you. So it's difficult to say that these are real, tools made by this company. This is clearly, made by somebody else, just sold by them under their brand. Now, I know a lot of you are going to want to kibitz and say, but Bear, I heard this, or I know this, or so-and-so bought that, not this, and not the other way around and everything. You got to understand, when it comes to corporate mergers and stuff like this, even if one company buys another company, such as the case when Disney bought Pixar, at the end of the day, it was really a case of Pixar taking over Disney because all of Pixar's upper management displaced all of Disney's upper management, and it really became Pixar Disney rather than Disney Pixar. And there's so many things you got to understand at high level corporate contracts and agreements and stuff that you need a flow chart to really understand them. So this is the best case that we can, without having access to those contracts, this is the best case of how we can understand how these different companies interact, who makes what, who owns what, who's covering, the customer service on this, whereas who's making the decisions. Much in the case like with Rigid, one of the issues I have is that they're not really great as far as covering the warranty. It seems like they do everything they can to get out of covering the warranty, and yet Milwaukee is famously great for covering their warranty and standing behind it no matter what, yet both tools are made by the same company. It's kind of weird. Anyway, the other thing I want to talk about here is that you may have seen charts and stuff like this that look a little more similar to this. And that's because PowerWasher.com first did this whole thing about 4 or 5 years ago or something like that. And they kind of started the trend about talking about who makes what and what the biggest companies are and everything. And they put a ton of work into it. Now, I've done my own research on this to get this up to date, but a lot of people have done videos like this since then, and didn't give them, I think, the proper credit for starting this whole genre, if you will. So I'm going to put a link down below to PowerWasher.com so you can go check out them, and maybe as a thanks to them for helping support the kind of stuff that we do here and the tool community as a whole. Anyway, that's all the Bear has for you today. You all take care. God bless. Don't forget to check us out this Sunday for Tool Talk Live, where we talk tools, tech, just about everything. All sorts of fun stuff. It's every Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific. Stop by the channel. Come by and say hi. Anyway, you all take care and shine on.